Welcome to the Wellness Lab Digest, where we help you to absorb powerful, life-changing insights from top wellness experts with our daily bite-sized wellness podcast summaries. Each episode is packed with distilled, powerful takeaways to boost your health and well-being. To support this podcast, please scroll down on whatever app you're listening. Ratings and reviews are helpful. Even better, just send the show to a friend. Check out our sponsors at the bottom of the page, or simply click the Support the Show link below the episode description.
The human brain, a supercomputer capable of processing 11 million bits per second. But what if I told you that our conscious mind only handles about 50 bits? Today we're diving into the fascinating world of human psychology and personal growth, exploring how our brain's hidden processes shape our lives in ways we can't even imagine.
Wow, that's a mind-blowing statistic. It really puts into perspective how much is happening beneath the surface of our consciousness. So, where do we start with unpacking all of this?
Well, let's begin with the concept of the call to adventure that Dr. Jordan Peterson introduces. It's not just about seeking thrills, it's about embracing challenges that lead to personal growth. You know, it's like our lives are a grand narrative, and we're the protagonists. This idea ties into how many great stories, even biblical ones, often start with a character being called to action.
That's fascinating. So, how does this concept relate to our everyday lives? It's not like we're all going on epic quests, right?
But that's where you're wrong. See, Peterson argues that every day presents its own call to adventure. It could be as simple as deciding to have a difficult conversation with a coworker or starting a new hobby. The key is recognizing these moments as opportunities for growth. It's about linking personal responsibility to our daily choices.
Oh, I see. So it's about reframing our everyday experiences. But how does this tie into the brain science you mentioned earlier?
Great question. The podcast delves into how our brain's structure, like the hypothalamus and prefrontal cortex, influences our emotions and actions. It's incredible how our biology and our narratives intertwine. They discuss the integration of impulses and how socialization shapes our behavior. It's not just about suppressing our primal urges, but about integrating them into a more sophisticated personality structure.
That sounds complex. Could you break it down a bit more?
Sure thing. So imagine your brain as a bustling city. The hypothalamus is like the old town center, dealing with basic needs and impulses. The prefrontal cortex is the modern business district, handling complex decision-making. Now, the goal isn't to tear down the old town, but to create harmony between the two. It's about developing what they call a hierarchical personality that balances our basic impulses with higher-order goals.
Oh, that's a helpful analogy. So, how does this understanding of our brain structure help us in practical terms?
Well, it's all about self-awareness and intentional growth. By understanding these mechanisms, we can better navigate our impulses and make more conscious decisions. For example, they touched on how this relates to addiction. The podcast highlights how understanding these brain processes can be transformative in contexts like addiction recovery.
That's really interesting. Did they provide any specific examples or success stories?
As a matter of fact, they did. They shared a powerful story about Huberman's friend who found sobriety through a renewed sense of purpose and faith. It really underscores the importance of having higher aims and a sense of community in achieving a fulfilling life. You know, it's not just about willpower, it's about rewiring our brain's reward system.
That makes sense. It seems like there's a strong connection between our mental processes and our social interactions. Did they discuss how this plays out in our modern digital world?
Absolutely. They dove into how social media and easy access to things like pornography are reshaping our reward systems and social interactions. It's like we're constantly bombarded with stimuli that our brains weren't necessarily designed to handle. Dr. Peterson emphasizes the need for a guiding framework to navigate these challenges and achieve meaningful outcomes.
That's a crucial point. So many of us are struggling with digital addiction without even realizing it. How did they suggest we approach this issue?
Well, they talked about the importance of setting meaningful long-term goals. It's about evaluating our reward systems and the timescales over which we derive satisfaction. You see, our brains are wired for immediate gratification, but true fulfillment often comes from delayed rewards. They even introduce the concept of entropy in emotions. Anxiety arises from uncertainty, while progress towards a goal leads to positive emotions and dopamine release.
That's really thought-provoking. It sounds like we need to be more intentional about how we engage with technology and set our goals. Did they offer any practical advice for implementing these ideas?
Yes, they did. One interesting suggestion was about establishing a morning routine. The speaker shared their own experience of showering and making the bed as a way to start the day positively, even when dealing with ongoing physical pain. It's a small act, but it sets the tone for the day and gives a sense of accomplishment right off the bat.
That's a great tip. Sometimes it's the small habits that make the biggest difference. Speaking of which, did they touch on any larger-scale initiatives related to these ideas?
Funny you should ask. They actually discussed the launch of Peterson Academy, which aims to provide high-quality lectures equivalent to full university courses. It's not just about the content, but about creating a positive online community. The fact that they've attracted a large audience and maintained a supportive atmosphere is really encouraging.
That sounds like an ambitious project. How does it tie into the broader themes they discuss?
Well, it all comes back to this idea of following one's calling and conscience. They stressed that anyone can achieve personal growth by being true to themselves. It's not about comparing ourselves to others or trying to fit into someone else's mold. It's about listening to our inner voice and taking steps, however small, towards our own growth and fulfillment.
That's a powerful message. As we wrap up, what do you think is the most important takeaway from all of this?
That's a tough one. But if I had to boil it down, I'd say the key takeaway is the interconnectedness of all these ideas, from brain chemistry to personal responsibility to the power of narrative. They all interweave to create a comprehensive picture of human psychology and growth. It's about understanding ourselves on multiple levels, biological, psychological, and social, and using that understanding to live more fulfilling lives.
Well said. Any final thoughts on how our listeners might apply these ideas in their own lives?
Absolutely. I'd encourage our listeners to start small. Maybe it's setting a meaningful goal for the next month, or establishing a morning routine. Perhaps it's taking time to reflect on your personal narrative and how it aligns with your actions. The key is to start somewhere and be consistent. Remember, personal growth is a journey, not a destination. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep growing. And don't forget to find moments of joy and humor along the way.
Those are wonderful suggestions. And to our listeners, we hope this discussion has given you some food for thought. Remember, these ideas are meant to be explored and adapted to your own life.
Exactly right. And on that note, I think we've covered the main points from this fascinating discussion. Keep adventuring, everyone.
Thanks for listening, and remember to stay curious and keep growing.
Thank you for listening to the Wellness Lab Digest. If you have received value from the podcast, I have 3 asks of you. 1, share the show with your friends and send them a link to the show. 2, please leave a rating and review in whatever app you're listening. And last but not least, please let me know what topics you would like us to cover in the future. You can contact me by sending me a message using the Send Us a Text link below the episode description.